This map has the location of the most valuable treasure of all. Even the most powerful and brutal pirates are after this. They will do anything to get their hand on this map. What happens when a kid gets the most valuable and most dangerous map ever? Will he be caught by the pirates or will he survive? To find out, watch till the end of this thrilling adventure story. Let's begin. As soon as I could, I told my mother everything about the captain and his terrifying visitors. Details I should have shared long ago. We realized just how dangerous our situation had become. The captain's debts were unpaid, but getting the money from his ruthless shipmates like Black Dog and that horrifying blind beggar seemed impossible. Worse, the captain had told me to fetch Dr. Livesey immediately. That meant leaving my mother alone at the inn, which neither of us could bear to think about. The inn itself felt unsafe. Every sound made us jump. The creak of the stairs, the ticking of the clock, even the crackle of coals in the fireplace. We imagined footsteps outside and shadows moving closer. The captain's dead body lay in the parlor, and the blind beggar's threats still rang in our ears. We were trapped, terrified, and running out of time. Something had to be done. Finally, we decided to leave the inn together and find help in the nearby hamlet. Without stopping for coats or hats, we stepped into the cold, foggy evening and ran. The hamlet wasn't far, just beyond the next cove, and we felt a little braver knowing it was in the opposite direction of where the blind beggar had gone. Still, we couldn't help stopping now and then to hold on to each other and listen, our ears straining for any sound of danger. But all we heard were the soft waves on the shore and the croaking of frogs in the woods. By the time we reached the hamlet, the comforting glow of candles shone in the windows. It lifted our spirits, if only for a moment. When we knocked on doors and explained our troubles, the villagers refused to help. They were too scared. The name Captain Flint struck terror into their hearts, though I didn't understand why. Some villagers had spotted strangers on the road, and even a small boat in Kit's Hole. They believed smugglers or pirates were nearby, and no one wanted to risk their lives for us. Frustrated, my mother gave them a piece of her mind. "If none of you dare help us," she said, her voice shaking with anger, "then Jim and I will handle it ourselves. We'll open that chest, no matter what, and we'll take what we're owed." Her courage amazed me, and of course I agreed to go with her. The villagers called us fools, but even then, none of them offered to join us. One boy was sent ahead to fetch Dr. Livesey, and they gave us a pistol in case we were attacked. But beyond that, we were on our own. My heart raced as we hurried back to the Admiral Benbow. The moon rose higher, glowing faintly through the fog, making us even more nervous. We moved quickly and quietly, sticking to the hedges to stay hidden. When we finally reached the inn and bolted the door behind us, I felt a brief sense of relief, but it didn't last long. Inside, the silence was overwhelming. The air felt heavy, and every shadow seemed alive. My mother lit a candle, and together we approached the captain's body. He hadn't moved. His lifeless eyes stared at the ceiling, and one arm lay stretched out on the floor. "Close the blinds, Jim," my mother whispered. "We don't want anyone spying on us." I did as she said, and then she turned to me, her voice trembling. "Now we need the key." Kneeling beside the captain, I searched his pockets. They were full of odd items: coins, needles, tobacco, and a small knife, but no key. "It must be around his neck," my mother said. I hesitated, but there was no choice. Swallowing my fear, I tore open his shirt and found the key hanging from a piece of string. I cut it free and handed it to my mother. Together, we hurried upstairs to his room. The captain's chest was large, heavy, and battered from years of travel. The letter B was burned into the lid, marking it as his. My mother inserted the key, and with some effort, she turned the lock. The lid creaked open, releasing the strong smell of tar and tobacco. At first, all we saw were neatly folded clothes, fine, unworn outfits that had clearly never been used. Underneath, we found trinkets and treasures: a tin cup, a pair of brass-mounted compasses, West Indian seashells, and silver coins. But what caught our attention were two things at the very bottom: a bundle of papers wrapped in oilskin and a canvas bag jingling with gold. "We'll take what's owed to us," my mother said firmly. She began counting out coins from the sailor's bag into another, carefully separating the amount needed to cover the captain's debts. The process was slow, There were coins from all over the world, and my mother could only count the ones she recognized. Suddenly, I froze. "Mother, stop," I whispered. "Listen." Outside, the familiar tap, tap, tap of the blind man's stick echoed on the road. He was back. The sound grew louder, stopping just outside the inn. Then we heard the door handle rattle as he tried to get inside. I held my breath, praying the locked door would keep him out. After a tense silence, the tapping resumed, fading into the distance. "Let's take it all and go," I urged, but my mother wouldn't hear of it. She insisted on taking only what was owed to us. We were still arguing when a whistle pierced the night air, short and sharp, twice repeated. It was a signal, and it meant trouble. Panicking, we grabbed the bag and the oilskin bundle. Leaving the candle burning in the captain's room, we fled into the night. The fog was lifting quickly, and the moonlight illuminated everything. Worse, the sound of footsteps and voices reached us. Someone was coming. My mother stumbled, clutching her chest. "Go on without me, Jim," she gasped. "Take the money and run." I refused to leave her. We reached a small bridge and crouched beneath it, hiding in the shadows. My mother leaned heavily against me, barely able to stand. I peeked out from behind a bush, my heart pounding as the gang arrived at the inn. The blind man, Pew, led the group. He barked orders, sending his men into the inn to search for the chest. "Bill's dead," one of them shouted, but Pew was furious. "Find the chest," he roared. Moments later, a man leaned out the upstairs window. "Someone's been here first. The chest is empty," he yelled. Pew's rage was terrifying. He struck his men with his stick, cursing them for their failure. The gang began arguing loudly, their tempers flaring. Then from the direction of the hamlet, the sound of galloping horses broke through the night. A pistol shot rang out, scattering the gang. The sharp whistle we had heard earlier was the pirates' final signal of danger. At once, the buccaneers scattered, running in every direction. Some sprinted toward the cove, others dashed across the hill, and within seconds they had all vanished into the shadows, except for Pew. Whether his comrades abandoned him out of sheer panic or revenge for his harsh treatment, I couldn't tell. But there he was, alone in the middle of the road, tapping his stick wildly and calling out in desperation. "Johnny, Black Dog, Dirk," he cried. "Don't leave old Pew. You wouldn't leave old Pew, mates." But no one came back for him. The road was empty, and Pew's cries echoed uselessly into the night. Then we heard the sound of galloping horses growing louder as several riders appeared on the hilltop, their figures sharp against the moonlight. Realizing his mistake too late, Pew screamed in panic and tried to run. He stumbled into a ditch, got back up, and ran straight into the path of one of the charging horses. The rider tried to stop, but it was too late. With a terrible cry, Pew was knocked down, trampled by the horse, and left lifeless on the ground. The riders slowed down, clearly shaken by the accident. As they approached, I stepped out of my hiding place and waved to them. They stopped, and I recognized one of them as a boy from the hamlet, the same boy who had gone to fetch help. The others were revenue officers, led by Supervisor Dance, who had come to investigate reports of a suspicious ship at Kit's Hole. It was thanks to them that my mother and I had been saved. Pew was dead, and with him, the immediate danger seemed to pass. With the situation under control, I returned to the hamlet with the officers, while my mother was helped back by some villagers. She was shaken but unharmed, though she still worried about the money we hadn't been able to collect. Supervisor Dance, meanwhile, decided to lead his men to Kit's Hole to catch the pirates before they escaped. The officers moved carefully as they approached the narrow path leading down to the cove. They dismounted and guided their horses by hand, wary of any ambushes. By the time they reached the shore, however, it was too late. The pirates' lugger, a small, fast ship, was already leaving. Supervisor Dance shouted at them to stop, but the only reply was a threat from one of the pirates, warning him to stay out of the moonlight. A moment later, a gunshot rang out, and a bullet zipped past Dance's arm. The officers could do nothing but watch as the ship slipped around the point and vanished into the night. "They've gotten away clean," Dance muttered bitterly. "Still, I'm glad we took care of that scoundrel Pew." Returning to the Admiral Benbow, I was shocked to see the state of the inn. The pirates had left it in complete disarray. Chairs were broken, furniture was overturned, and even the clock had been smashed in their frenzied search. Though they hadn't stolen much beyond the captain's money bag and a bit of silver, the damage was enough to leave us ruined. Dance inspected the scene, frowning. They got the money, he said. So, what else were they after? I hesitated, then admitted, I think I have what they wanted. It's here in my pocket, and I'd like to put it somewhere safe. Dance nodded, understanding immediately. You're right to be cautious, lad. Let's take it to Dr. Livesey. He'll know what to do. He offered to take me to the doctor's house, and I quickly agreed. After explaining everything to my mother and making sure she was safe, I joined Dance and his men as they prepared to leave. The journey to Dr. Livesey's house was tense, though the company of the officers gave me a sense of safety. By the time we reached the doctor's house, the front was dark, and we learned from the maid that Dr. Livesey was dining at the hall with the local squire, Mr. Trelawney. Without delay, we set off again. The hall was a grand place, surrounded by gardens and a long avenue bathed in moonlight. Inside, we were led to a large library with walls lined with books and a roaring fire in the hearth. Dr. Livesey and the squire were sitting by the fire, each with a pipe in hand. The squire, Mr. Trelawney, was a tall, broad man with a strong, weathered face and thick black eyebrows. He looked like a man of action, but his expression softened when he saw me. Good evening, Mr. Dance, said Dr. Livesey with a nod. And good evening to you, Jim. What brings you here at this hour? Supervisor Dance stood tall and gave a full report of the events at the inn, including Pugh's death and the pirate's escape. Both men listened intently, leaning forward as the story unfolded. When Dance described how my mother and I had faced the pirates alone, the squire leapt to his feet. Bravo, he exclaimed. Your mother is a brave woman, Jim, and you're a fine lad. When Dance had finished, I handed Dr. Livesey the oilskin packet I had taken from the captain's chest. He examined it carefully, his curiosity evident. But instead of opening it right away, he made sure I had something to eat first. After supper, he laid the packet on the table and carefully cut it open. Inside were two items, an old book and a sealed map. The book contained a record of Flint's crimes, lists of ships attacked, treasures stolen, and locations where the loot was hidden. It was a grim reminder of the captain's dark past, but it was the map that captured everyone's attention. The map showed an island, complete with detailed landmarks, harbors, and 3 red crosses marking spots where treasure was buried. Next to one of the crosses were the words, "Bulk of treasure here." The squire was ecstatic. This is it, Flint's treasure. We'll outfit a ship, hire a crew, and set sail. Hawkins, you'll come as cabin boy. Livesey, you'll be the ship's doctor, and I'll lead the expedition as admiral. Dr. Livesey smiled but cautioned him. We must keep this secret. Those pirates won't give up so easily. We'll need to be careful until we're safely at sea. With that, the plan was set. I couldn't believe it. An incredible adventure lay ahead, and I was about to be part of it. This story reminds us that even in the face of fear, courage can light the way forward. But Jim's journey is far from over. This is only the beginning. What lies ahead for him as he unravels the mysteries of the treasure map? And who can he truly trust as he sets sail into uncharted waters? What would you have done in his place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to follow Jim's daring adventures, because the next chapter will take you to the high seas, where danger and betrayal await at every turn. You won't want to miss it.